Well, as I pointed out at the beginning of my talk, it does seem to be changing because of what you came up with on Buster Jangle. Further, the committee relied exclusively on governmental sources instead of their own faculties to reach this conclusion, considering all the information available about these tests, which is now apparently being rectified. Can you imagine the uproar that would ensue when participants in the other test series learned that the tests they were in were not considered experimental? Well, now you've opened a Pandora's box by coming up with the evidence about Red Wing. So documentary material that is in our favor. Documentary material has been presented to this committee stating that urine samples were to be obtained from all the test participants, which of course were not obtained from the vast majority of the test participants. Why are urine samples taken? Are they taken to see how much radiation remains in the body? Are they taken to determine how the ingested radiation affects the subject's health? We think the urine samples, if they are taken, have been taken, were to determine that how little was left in the body, despite the damage what was excreted previously caused. I was a test participant in Operation Crossroads at Bikini in July 1946. One of my crewmates recently informed me, I hadn't seen him for years, recently informed me that he was told not to look at the atomic detonation because he might suffer serious radiation injury. I'm talking about Test Able, the bomb that shows on the cover of this newsletter. I, on the contrary, recall being out on the deck of the same vessel, the floating dry dock, which had been towed to a presumably safe distance when it was announced over the PA system that if we wanted to see the detonation of Test Able, we should look in a certain direction and listen to the countdown over the PA system. We were not issued protective goggles, even though I later learned that a special directive to that effect had been issued to all the ships assigned to the test. When the countdown reached 0, I saw the flash on the horizon, and we immediately reversed course and headed back to Bikini. We entered the lagoon the next morning, anchored, and proceeded to work on damaged target ships. As before the test, when work was over, we stripped down and dove into the contaminated lagoon for our usual refreshing swim. Nobody told us that the lagoon water might be contaminated with alpha particles. Nobody told the young men who were sent aboard the target ships to retrieve dead and dying experimental animals, cameras, and test equipment about the dangers of radiation. Why were some of the target ships quote-unquote decontaminated and declared Geiger sweet as opposed to Geiger sour when they were really not, so that the crews could go back aboard to resume their normal duties? We believe that this was experimental. Why do the surviving crew members of some of the support ships still refer to them as death ships? The bottom line is that they wanted to see how our ability to engage in combat operations during a nuclear war would be affected. They wanted to see how living aboard supposedly decontaminated target ships would affect our ability to perform our military duties. And we were also the victims of the insatiable curiosity of Dr. Strangeloves like Dr. Edward Teller, who wanted to see what could be learned from the testing of bombs of many different designs and yields. Just as John Deutsch lied on 60 Minutes the other night, Pentagon spokesmen have been lying for decades about the real effects of radiation on the hundreds of thousands of servicemen who were exposed. I rest my case.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen.